My mother-in-law accused me of stealing someone else's baby. Then the doctor walked in and exposed everything. The first time I met Patricia Wilson, she looked me up and down with the kind of scrutiny usually reserved for fodder pet bills. Her lips pursed into a tight smile that never reached her eyes as she extended her hand, adorned with a diamond ring that caught the light in a way that seemed deliberately blinding. "So, you're the one who's captured my Ethan's heart," she said, her voice honey-coated but laced with something bitter underneath. How unexpected. I remember squeezing her hand a little too firmly, determined to make a good impression despite the chill radiating from her perfect posture. Behind her, Ethan shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting between us like a spectator at a tennis match he'd rather not be attending. That was 5 years ago. 5 years of calculated holiday dinners where Patricia would accidentally set one less place at the table. 5 years of backhanded compliments about my simple taste in fashion, or how brave I was to pursue my modest career in graphic design, instead of something more substantial. 5 years of Ethan assuring me that she just needs time, and that's just how mom is with everyone. But it wasn't how she was with everyone. I'd seen how she melted around Ethan's college friends, how she beamed at his colleagues' wives, how she practically adopted his cousin's new girlfriend after just one dinner. It was only me who remained perpetually on probation in the Wilson family. "It's because you're not from our world," my friend Melissa suggested over coffee one day. "Old money families like the Wilsons have this weird thing about outsiders." "I'm not exactly from the wrong side of the tracks," I protested. "My parents are respected professors. We traveled. I went to good schools." "Yeah, but you earned your way," Melissa pointed out. "That's practically offensive to people who inherit everything." Perhaps she was right. Or perhaps it was simpler than that. Patricia had imagined a different kind of woman for her only son, and I wasn't it. Whatever the reason, I had made peace with the fact that I would never truly be part of the Wilson inner circle. I loved Ethan enough to accept the package deal of his distant mother, his passive father who seemed permanently hidden behind financial newspapers, and holiday gatherings that felt like job interviews that never ended. Then, on a rainy Tuesday in October, everything changed. I stared at the pregnancy test in my bathroom, the 2 pink lines sending my heart into somersaults. Ethan and I had been trying for almost a year, starting shortly after our 4th anniversary when he'd looked at me over dinner and said, "I think we'd make great parents, don't you?" My hands trembled as I FaceTimed him. He was away on another business trip. These had become increasingly frequent over the past 2 years, week-long stretches where he'd fly to Chicago or London or Singapore, returning home with expensive gifts and stories that somehow always felt edited for content. "Ethan," I whispered when his face appeared on screen, the hotel room blurry in the background. "I'm pregnant." The pause that followed lasted maybe 2 seconds, but it felt eternal. Then his face broke into the most genuine smile I'd seen in months. "You're sure?" he asked, his voice cracking slightly. I nodded, tears spilling down my cheeks. "I'm coming home," he said immediately. "I'll book the first flight out. But your meetings can wait. This can't." He was home the next day, wrapping me in an embrace that felt like coming up for air after being underwater too long. For a week, we existed in our own bubble of joy, planning, dreaming, arguing playfully over names. Ethan insisted we wait until the 12-week mark to tell anyone else, but his excitement was palpable. And I fell in love with him all over again, watching him research the safest car seats and download pregnancy apps on his phone. When we finally shared the news with his parents over dinner at their sprawling colonial home in Greenwich, I braced myself for Patricia's reaction. I expected polite congratulations at best, thinly veiled disappointment at worst. What I didn't expect was for her to set down her fork, walk around the table, and embrace me. Actually embrace me for the first time in 5 years. "A grandchild," she breathed, and I swore I saw tears in her eyes. "Oh, Anna. This changes everything." And for a while, it seemed to. Patricia called regularly to check on me. She sent over boxes of Ethan's childhood books and toys, meticulously preserved. She invited me to lunch, just the 2 of us, where she actually listened when I talked and shared stories of her own pregnancy with Ethan. The most surprising development came when I was 4 months along. Patricia arrived at our door unannounced, practically rivergang with excitement. "I want to help with the nursery," she announced, striding past me into the house. "I've been thinking, The room with the eastern exposure would be perfect. Best morning light. We could do a woodland theme, gender neutral of course, since you two are being so mysterious about whether it's a boy or girl. I glanced at Ethan, who looked as surprised as I felt. We hadn't even started on the nursery yet. That's really thoughtful, Mom, he said cautiously. Well, this is my first grandchild, she replied, as if that explained everything. I want to be involved. And so began the great nursery project. Patricia hired painters and decorators, ordered custom furniture, and consulted with me on every detail. For the first time, I felt like she was seeing me, really seeing me, as family. Thank you for doing this, I told her one afternoon as we sorted through tiny clothes. It means a lot to me, Patricia. She looked up, something unreadable flickering across her face. We're family now, Anna. The baby changes everything. She hesitated, then added, you can call me Mom, if you'd like. I nearly dropped the onesie I was folding. I'd like that, Mom. The word felt foreign on my tongue, but not unwelcome. My own mother had passed away when I was in college, and my father had remarried and moved to Arizona. The idea of having a mother figure again, even one as complicated as Patricia, made my throat tight with emotion. As my belly grew, so did my relationship with Patricia. We developed inside jokes. She defended me when other family members made insensitive comments about my size or diet. She threw me an elegant baby shower, inviting not just her country club friends but my friends too, making sure everything was to my taste rather than hers. Ethan watched this transformation with a mixture of relief and what seemed like unease. I never thought I'd see the day, he commented after one particularly pleasant family dinner. Mom's actually treating you like a daughter. Isn't it great? I beamed, rubbing my 7-month belly. I finally feel like I belong. Something crossed his face, a shadow I couldn't interpret. Yeah, he said, checking his phone. It's great. If I'd been paying closer attention, I might have noticed the warning signs. The way Ethan's business trips didn't decrease as my due date approached, but instead became more frequent. The hushed phone calls he took in our home office, ending abruptly when I waddled into the room. The way he sometimes stared at my pregnant body with what looked less like adoration and more like calculation. But I was too caught up in my newfound acceptance, too blissfully focused on the baby growing inside me, too relieved to finally have the family I'd always wanted. For the first time in 5 years, I felt secure in my marriage and my place in the Wilson family. The night before I went into labor, Ethan came home late from another trip. He sat on the edge of our bed and took my hand, his expression serious. Anna, he said quietly, you know I love you, right? No matter what happens, remember that. I laughed, attributing his intensity to pre-baby jitters. Of course I know. We're about to become a family of 3. Everything is perfect. He nodded, squeezing my hand a little too tightly. Perfect, he echoed, but the word sounded hollow. 12 hours later, as contractions tore through my body and the hospital room filled with the controlled chaos of delivery, I reached for Ethan's hand only to grasp empty air. He had stepped out to make a call 20 minutes earlier and hadn't returned. Your husband? The nurse asked, wiping sweat from my brow. He'll be back, I gasped between contractions. He wouldn't miss this. But as our daughter entered the world in a rush of pain and wonder, the space beside me remained empty. The doctor placed her on my chest, this tiny, perfect being with Ethan's nose and my chin. And in that moment of pure love and exhaustion, I didn't yet understand that the perfect picture I thought we'd created was about to shatter completely. I just didn't know that the cracks had been there all along, hidden beneath the surface, waiting for my daughter's arrival to split wide open. The first night with my daughter was a blur of exhaustion and wonder. I named her Lily, a name Ethan and I had both loved, and spent hours just watching her tiny chest rise and fall. The nurses had been kind enough to let me keep her in my room, perhaps sensing my anxiety over being alone. Ethan still hadn't returned, and my calls went straight to voicemail. Mr. Wilson said he had an emergency, one nurse told me sympathetically. He promised to be back by morning. I tried to ignore the knot of worry in my stomach. Emergencies happened. Maybe a work crisis. Maybe his phone died. Maybe he was simply overwhelmed by becoming a father. I focused instead on Lily's perfect fingers, her rosebud mouth, the way she seemed to recognize my voice already. Dawn broke with soft pink light streaming through the hospital blinds. I had just managed to doze off when the door to my room flew open with such force that it bounced against the wall. Lily startled in her bassinet, her tiny legs kicking in surprise. "Where is he?" Patricia Wilson stood in the doorway, her usual immaculate appearance alarmingly disheveled. Her gray blonde hair hung loose around her shoulders instead of in its typical coiffed style, and she wore no makeup, making the wild look in her eyes even more pronounced. "Patricia?" I struggled to sit up, wincing at the pain. "Ethan's not here. I thought he might be with you." She ignored my answer, her gaze landing on Lily. Her face drained of color so rapidly I feared she might faint. "Oh my God," she whispered, backing away. "Oh my God, what have you done?" "What do you mean?" I reached for the call button, suddenly afraid. "I had the baby, your granddaughter. Would you like to meet her?" Patricia's hand flew to her mouth. "That is not your baby," she shrieked, her voice bouncing off the sterile hospital walls. "Where is Ethan? This child belongs to someone else." The accusation was so absurd I almost laughed, but the genuine horror on her face stopped me. "Patricia, you're not making any sense. I just gave birth to her yesterday. The staff can confirm. The staff can be bribed, babies can be switched." She was nearly hyperventilating now, backing toward the door. "I know what you've done. I know everything." A nurse rushed in, alerted by the commotion. "Ma'am, you need to lower your voice. This is a maternity ward." Patricia pointed a shaking finger at me. "She's stolen a baby. That's not her child. Call security. Call the police." "Mrs. Wilson," the nurse said firmly, positioning herself between Patricia and me, "I personally assisted at this delivery yesterday. This is definitely Miss Reynolds' baby." "Then where is the other one?" Patricia demanded. "Where is Mira's baby?" The name hit me like a physical blow. "Who is Mira?" I asked, though a terrible stupor was already forming. Patricia's eyes narrowed, calculating whether she'd said too much. "The mother will be here soon," she said finally, ignoring my question. "The real mother, and this charade will be over." She stormed out, leaving me clutching Lily to my chest, my heart thundering. The nurse squeezed my shoulder before following Patricia out, promising to alert security about the disturbance. Alone with Lily, I frantically dialed Ethan again. Voicemail. I tried his work number, his email, even his assistant's cell. Nothing. It was as if he'd vanished. "Your grandmother has lost her mind," I whispered to Lily, kissing her downy head. "But I won't let anyone take you from me." The day crept by in a haze of anxiety. I refused to let the nurses take Lily to the nursery, terrified of Patricia's accusations. Hospital security posted someone outside my door as a precaution, which should have been reassuring but only amplified my fear. By evening, I was a mess of hormones and panic. I hadn't eaten, couldn't sleep. Every noise in the hallway made me jump. I called my best friend, Melissa, who promised to drive up from Philadelphia first thing in the morning. "What if Ethan doesn't come back?" I sobbed into the phone. "Then he's an even bigger asshole than I thought," Melissa replied bluntly. "But you're wronger than you know, Anna, and I'll be there soon." Just as I hung up, movement in the hallway caught my eye. Through the narrow window in my door, I glimpsed a woman pacing. She was slim with long dark hair similar to mine, and she carried something in her arms, a pale yellow blanket, folded into a small bundle. She cradled it like a precious cargo. But as she turned, I realized the blanket was empty. Our eyes met through the glass. Hers were red-rimmed and hollow with grief. She looked as terrified as I felt. Patricia appeared beside her, whispering urgently, one hand on the woman's back. She gestured toward my room, and the woman's face crumpled. Even through the door, I could hear Patricia's voice, low and insistent. "Trust me, Mira. I'll make this right. That's your baby in there. I'm sure of it." The woman, Mira, glanced again toward me, her expression a mix of desperation and doubt. In that moment, watching them scheme in the corridor, cradling my newborn daughter against my racing heart, I understood with perfect clarity that Patricia hadn't changed at all. Her sudden warmth, her interest in my pregnancy, her desire to be involved, none of it had been about accepting me. It had been about the baby. And now I had to figure out who Mira was, what she meant to Ethan, and how far Patricia would go to take my daughter away from me. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every shadow seemed threatening. Every footstep in the corridor a potential enemy. I kept Lily cradled against me, dozing fitfully between feedings, jolting awake at the slightest noise. The security guard outside my door offered some comfort, but I couldn't shake the image of that woman, Mira, with her empty blanket and devastated eyes. Morning arrived with weak sunlight and a shift change for the nurses. The new one, Darlene, had kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that I immediately trusted. "Rough night?" she asked, checking my vitals. "You could say that." I hesitated, then asked, "Do you know if there was another baby born yesterday? One that didn't make it?" Darlene's expression shifted subtly. "I can't discuss other patients, honey. HIPAA rules." "Please," I whispered. "Someone's trying to claim my baby isn't mine. I need to tend to what's happening." She checked the hallway, then leaned closer. "There was a stillbirth yesterday morning. Foreign couple. Very sad situation." My stomach dropped. Was the mother's name Mira? Darlene's eyebrows shot up. "How did you—" She stopped herself. "I can't say more, but be careful who you trust right now." After she left, I tried Ethan's number again. Still nothing. I scrolled through our text history, looking for clues, anything to explain his disappearance at such a crucial moment. Instead, I found myself examining old photos, searching his eyes for secrets. Had there been signs all along that I'd missed? Weekend conferences that never seemed to have websites, late-night calls he took in other rooms, the way he sometimes looked at me as if measuring my reactions. A soft knock interrupted my spiraling thoughts. I tensed, clutching Lily tighter, but it was only a hospital volunteer with a breakfast tray. "The cafeteria sent up extra orange juice," she said cheerfully. "New mamas need their vitamin C." As she arranged the tray, I glimpsed movement through the door window. Mira again, this time sitting in a chair across the hall, staring at my room. No empty blanket today, just her hands twisting in her lap, wedding ring catching the fluorescent light. Wedding ring. The volunteer left, and I forced myself to eat, my mind racing. Could Ethan possibly be married to this woman? The thought was so outlandish, I almost dismissed it. But then again, so was Patricia accusing me of stealing a baby. I reached for my phone again, this time opening Instagram. I rarely used social media, but Ethan was even less interested, or so I'd thought. I typed his name into the search bar, scrolling past dozens of other Ethan Wilsons until I found his barely used account. Nothing suspicious there, just occasional photos of business dinners or us at family events, all carefully curated and appropriate. On a hunch, I searched Mira Wilson. Nothing. I tried variations, Mira W, Mira with Ethan, until finally something caught my eye. An account under Mira Travels with a profile photo that made my blood freeze. Ethan and the woman from the hallway, his arm around her shoulders, both of them beaming against a backdrop of what looked like the Singapore skyline. My fingers trembled as I tapped on the profile. It was private, but the bio read, following my heart across continents. Wife, traveler, soon-to-be mom. Singapore, London, sometimes New York. Wife, soon-to-be mom. The room seemed to tilt. I clutched the bed rail, fighting waves of nausea that had nothing to do with my postpartum recovery. Lily stirred against me, her tiny mouth making sucking motions in her sleep, blissfully unaware that her world was imploding. Another knock, sharper this time. The door opened before I could respond, and Patricia walked in, followed by a tall, severe-looking man in an expensive suit. "This is Mr. Caldwell, the family attorney," Patricia announced, as if we were meeting at a dinner party rather than in my hospital room, after she'd accused me of baby theft. "Get out," I said, surprised by the steel in my voice. "Anna, be reasonable," Patricia sighed. "We're trying to resolve this situation discreetly." "What situation?" I demanded. "Where is Ethan? Who is that woman watching my room? And why does her Instagram say she's married to my husband?" Mr. Caldwell cleared his throat. "Mrs. Wilson, perhaps we should." "She's confused and emotional," Patricia cut him off. "The point is, there's been a terrible mistake. That woman out there lost her baby yesterday. She and her husband deserve our compassion and their child, if there's been some hospital mix-up." "There's been no mix-up," I said through clenched teeth. "Lily is my daughter. The nurses can confirm it. There would be records, security footage." "Records can be altered," Patricia said, dismissively. We simply want a DNA test to clear everything up." The pieces suddenly clicked together with sickening clarity. "You knew," I whispered. "All this time you knew Ethan was married to her." Patricia's face hardened. "Mira and Ethan were married 3 years before he met you. A marriage I fully supported, by the way. She comes from an excellent family in Singapore, with connections that have been invaluable to Ethan's career." 3 years before, I couldn't finish the sentence. Ethan and I had been married 5 years. The math was undeniable. "It was a complicated situation," Patricia continued, having the audacity to look uncomfortable. "Mira couldn't have children, or so we thought. When you got pregnant, we made certain arrangements. But then Mira surprised us all. She conceived around the same time." The room was spinning faster now. "So my entire marriage is a fraud? And what, you were planning to take my baby all along?" Patricia's eyes flicked to Lily. "Don't be dramatic. We were going to compensate you generously for any inconvenience." "Inconvenience?" I choked on the word. "You were going to steal my child." "Mrs. Wilson," the lawyer interjected nervously, "I advised against discussing this without—" The door burst open, interrupting whatever warning he was about to give. A harried-looking doctor entered, followed by 2 security guards and Mira, whose red-rimmed eyes locked onto Lily with naked longing. "I need to see that baby," she said, her accented voice soft but determined. "Please. I need to know if she's mine." The room fell into a tense silence as Mira stood there, trembling but determined. I instinctively pulled Lily closer to my chest, my body curving around her like a shield. "Nobody touches my daughter," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. The doctor, an older man with salt and pepper hair and tired eyes that had clearly seen 2 new family dramas unfold in these halls, stepped between us. "I'm Dr. Morgan, Chief of Obstetrics," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "And this situation has escalated far beyond what's appropriate for a maternity ward." He turned to Patricia. "Mrs. Wilson, I understand you've requested a DNA test?" Patricia lifted her chin. "Yes. We have reason to believe there may have been a mix-up with the infants." "A mix-up?" Dr. Morgan repeated flatly. "Despite the fact that Ms. Reynolds' delivery was overseen by 3 medical professionals, the baby was never out of her sight, and we have strict protocols including identification bands that match mother and child." "Mistakes happen," Patricia insisted. "And coincidentally, another woman delivered a baby around the same time, a baby she was told didn't survive." Mira let out a small pained sound at this, and despite everything, my heart ached for her. Whatever Ethan and Patricia had done, this woman had lost her child. That grief was real. Dr. Morgan sighed deeply. "Mrs. Wilson, you've been causing disruption since yesterday. You've made serious allegations that could damage this hospital's reputation. You've distressed a new mother and her infant. So yes, we performed the DNA test you demanded, after consulting our legal department." My head snapped up. "You did a DNA test? Without my consent?" "Your husband gave consent," the doctor said carefully. "My husband hasn't been here since I went into labor." "He was here at 2 a.m., one of the security guards offered. "Signed in at the desk. Asked specifically about testing procedures. Ethan had been here in the night while I slept, authorizing tests on our baby without even seeing me." The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. Dr. Morgan pulled an envelope from his lab coat. "I have the results here. Given the unusual circumstances, I felt it best to deliver them personally with security present." Patricia reached for the envelope with undisguised triumph. "Finally, we'll have the truth." "The truth," Dr. Morgan repeated, holding the results away from her grasp, "is that this child is biologically related to Anna Reynolds. She is, without question, the birth mother of this infant." Relief flooded through me so intensely I nearly collapsed back against the pillows. But the doctor wasn't finished. "The test also confirms that Ethan Wilson is the biological father." Patricia's face contorted with disbelief. "That's impossible. There must be a mistake." "There's no mistake," Dr. Morgan said firmly. "We ran the test twice to be absolutely certain." Mira swayed on her feet, and one of the security guards quickly moved to steady her. "Then my baby," she whispered. Dr. Morgan's expression softened with genuine compassion. "Ms. Lim, I was not your attending physician, but I've reviewed your file. Your baby was stillborn at 38 weeks. There was no heartbeat detected during labor. And despite our team's best efforts, she could not be resuscitated. I am deeply sorry for your loss." Patricia wasn't giving up. "We demand a second opinion. Another test." "Mrs. Wilson," Dr. Morgan said, his patience visibly thinning, "even if we ran 100 more tests, the result would be the same. This child belongs to Miss Reynolds, and Miss Lim has undergone a traumatic experience that your actions are only making worse." For the first time, Patricia looked uncertain, her carefully constructed plan crumbling around her. She turned to Mira. "There must be some explanation. Perhaps the hospital." "There's a very simple explanation," came a new voice from the doorway. "Ethan." He stood there in rumpled clothes, his face haggard, dark circles under his eyes. He looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. "Ethan!" Mira cried, rushing to him. He caught her automatically, but his eyes were fixed on me and Lily. "I'm so sorry," he said, though I wasn't sure which of us he was addressing. "Mr. Wilson," Dr. Morgan said coldly, "perhaps you'd like to explain to both these women why their DNA tests show you as the father of Miss Reynolds' living child, while Miss Lim has just lost your baby?" The room went so quiet, I could hear the soft beeping of monitors from neighboring rooms. Patricia had gone pale, her perfect composure finally shattered. "You told me she couldn't have children," she hissed at Ethan. "That's why we agreed to let you marry Anna, to secure an heir for the family business. You swore Mira was infertile." "I thought she was," Ethan whispered. "When Anna got pregnant, it seemed like perfect timing. I never imagined Mira would conceive too." The pieces of my shattered reality rearranged themselves into an even more horrific picture. I hadn't just been betrayed, I'd been selected, used. Like some kind of high-end surrogate. "You married me as a broodmare?" My voice was barely audible. Mira pulled away from Ethan, shock blooming across her face. "You married her? You said she was just a girlfriend, a convenient arrangement your parents tolerated." "He married me 5 years ago," I told her, the words like acid on my tongue. "We have a marriage certificate, wedding photos, a house." "That's impossible," Mira said, shaking her head violently. "We've been married for 8 years. We have a life in Singapore, a home in London." Ethan looked trapped, his eyes darting between us. Patricia, the security guards, searching for an escape that didn't exist. "I can explain," he started, but Dr. Morgan cut him off. "Mr. Wilson, I believe you've done more than enough already. Security will escort you from the premises while these women decide if they wish to press charges for what appears to be bigamy, fraud, and emotional abuse." As the guards moved toward Ethan, I locked eyes with Mira. In her devastated expression, I recognized my own pain, my own betrayal, and something else too, a dawning realization that we had both been pawns in a game designed by Ethan and Patricia, manipulated and lied to for years. And now, as the truth exploded around us, I understood that Patricia's earlier accusation had been more than just confusion or malice. It had been desperation. After the security guards escorted Ethan to the waiting area, Dr. Morgan insisted everyone else leave my room as well. "Miss Reynolds needs rest," he said firmly, positioning himself as an unexpected ally. Only Mira lingered in the doorway, her eyes red-rimmed but dry now, as if she'd moved beyond tears into some new territory of grief. "I am sorry," she said softly. "I did not know about you, not the truth." Before I could respond, she was gone, leaving me alone with Lily and the wreckage of my life. An hour later, against medical advice, I was sitting up in bed, dressed in my own clothes that Melissa had brought, preparing discharge papers. I couldn't stay in this hospital another minute. Every sympathetic glance from the nurses, every hushed conversation outside my door, it all felt like sandpaper on my raw emotions. "Are you sure about this?" Melissa asked, bouncing Lily gently in her arms. "You just had a baby yesterday." "I'm sure I can't stay here," I replied, signing the final form with a shaky hand. Not with all of them lurking around every corner. A soft knock interrupted us. My heart sank, expecting Patricia or maybe even Ethan again, but it was Dr. Morgan. "Miss Reynolds, before you go, there's someone who'd like to speak with you." He hesitated. "Ethan Wilson has been quite insistent. Normally I wouldn't allow it. But what? But I think you deserve answers. Security will be right outside." He paused. "For what it's worth, in 20 years of medicine, this is one of the most disturbing situations I've encountered. I nodded numbly. Send him in. Melissa squeezed my hand and took Lily to the adjoining bathroom, giving us space while staying protectively close. When Ethan entered, he looked smaller somehow. The confident businessman I'd married had been replaced by a haunted shell, shoulders hunched as if expecting a physical blow. You have 5 minutes, I said coldly. He nodded, remaining standing at a distance. I don't expect forgiveness. You deserve to know everything. Start talking. I met Mira in Singapore 8 years ago. Her father owns shipping companies my family wanted to partner with. The marriage was encouraged by both families. I did grow to care for her, but it was a business arrangement first. How romantic, I said bitterly. 3 years in, we learned Mira couldn't conceive. Her family was devastated. No heir to continue their bloodline. My mother was equally obsessed with having grandchildren to secure the Wilson legacy. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. That's when Mom suggested I find someone else. Someone who could give us a child without complications. The plan was simple. I'd maintain my marriage to Mira in Asia while establishing a relationship with someone here. Once there was a child, we'd arrange a divorce, with generous terms of course, and bring the child into the Wilson Lim family. Each word hit like a physical blow, and I was the lucky candidate. You weren't random, Anna. I did research. You had the right genetics, intelligence, background. No complicated family ties that might interfere later. And when we met, there was genuine attraction. I never expected to actually, he trailed off. To actually what? Fall in love? I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. Save it, Ethan. You maintained 2 entire lives for 5 years. That's not love. That's pathological. At first, it was just the plan, but things changed. I started spending more time with you than in Singapore. Mom noticed, kept pushing me to remember the arrangement. Then you got pregnant, and it seemed like everything was working out. Until Mira got pregnant too, I finished. Ethan nodded miserably. It was a miracle pregnancy. Doctors had given her a less than 1% chance. Mom was ecstatic. Her golden daughter-in-law had conceived after all. The plan changed. Instead of divorcing you, we'd just take the baby. A cold shiver ran down my spine. How exactly? Mom arranged for Mira to fly to New York to deliver around your due date. The original idea was convince you the baby died during delivery, then have you sign away rights during your grief. The money would help you start fresh, somewhere far away. The calculated cruelty stole my breath. And you agreed to this? I tried to find alternatives. I suggested we keep both children. Mira in Singapore, you here. Mom rejected that immediately. Said it was too messy, too many loose ends. Then Mira's baby didn't make it, I whispered. Yes, his voice cracked. It was a girl. We were going to name her Rose. When Mom found out, she became unhinged. Said the universe had made a mistake. That Mira deserved a living child more than you did. So she decided to steal my baby. Your mother, who spent the last few months pretending to accept me, was planning to rip my child away all along. She convinced Mira that the hospital might have switched the babies somehow. That your living child might actually be Verse. It was desperate, irrational, but Mira was in such pain. She wanted to believe it. I thought of the woman in the hallway, clutching her empty blanket. However manipulated she'd been, her grief was genuine. Where were you during all this? I demanded. While I was giving birth? While your mother was terrorizing me? Panicking, he admitted. When both of you went into labor on the same day, I couldn't face either of you. I kept driving around, trying to figure out what to do. When I finally came to the hospital and learned about Mira's baby, I knew Mom would try something desperate. I authorized the DNA test, hoping it would end her schemes. The pathetic inadequacy of his response struck me like a physical blow. This weak, duplicitous man was the father of my child. This was the family I tried so hard to join. Get out, I said quietly. Anna, get out, I screamed, no longer caring who heard. You're a coward and a fraud, and I never want to see you again. As Ethan slunk away, Melissa emerged with Lily, her face tight with fury. I heard everything, she said. That entire family is toxic waste. I reached for my daughter, burying my face in her sweet-smelling hair. Not the entire family, I whispered. Lily is a Wilson by blood, but she'll be a Reynolds by heart, and that makes all the difference. 3 days after leaving the hospital, I sat across from Diana Chen, the fiercest divorce attorney in Manhattan. She listened without interruption as I laid out the whole sordid story, her expression remaining professionally neutral even as the details grew increasingly outrageous. When I finished, she removed her glasses and leaned forward. In 20 years of practice, I've never encountered a case quite like this. Bigamy, fraud, conspiracy, potential kidnapping. The Wilson family has created a legal nightmare for themselves. Can they take Lily from me? The question that had kept me awake for nights. Absolutely not, Diana said firmly. You are the biological mother. You have been Lily's primary caretaker from birth. No judge would remove her from your custody, especially given the circumstances. I closed my eyes briefly, the first moment of real relief I'd felt since Patricia had burst into my hospital room. That said, Diana continued, prepare yourself. The Wilsons are powerful. They will try to buy your silence, then intimidate you, then destroy your reputation if necessary. But I've built my career taking down men like Ethan Wilson and families like his. I nodded, feeling something steel-like form in my spine. I want everything they owe me, not just financially, but legally. I want protection. I want Ethan exposed for what he did. We'll file for divorce first thing tomorrow morning, citing fraud and bigamy. I suggest we also file for a restraining order against both Ethan and Patricia. The next week passed in a blur of paperwork, phone calls, and sleepless nights with Lily in the small apartment Melissa had helped me find. The Wilsons' first move came predictably fast, a settlement offer delivered by a somber-faced junior attorney from their firm. $5 million, the young lawyer said, sliding the document across Melissa's kitchen table. In exchange for a quiet divorce and full confidentiality. I didn't even glance at the papers. Tell Ethan and Patricia I don't want their money. I want justice. 3 days later, Patricia herself appeared at my door, a designer handbag over one arm, her face a carefully composed mask of contrition. Anna, please, she began, as I moved to close the door. Just hear me out. We're still family. Lily is still my grandchild. Lily is my daughter, I replied coldly. And you tried to steal her. I was distraught over Mira's loss. I wasn't thinking clearly. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small velvet box. This is a family heirloom, a diamond bracelet that's been passed down for generations. I want Lily to have it. The audacity nearly took my breath away. You think jewelry will fix this? You plotted to separate me from my newborn baby. You've been lying to me for 5 years. Your son committed a federal crime by marrying 2 women. Mistakes were made, Patricia conceded, her eyes hardening. But consider your daughter's future. The Wilsons can provide opportunities you simply cannot. Private schools, trust funds, connections. The Wilsons can provide a masterclass in deception and cruelty. No, thank you. Don't be foolish. You're a graphic designer with no family support. How will you manage alone? For the first time since this nightmare began, I smiled. Genuinely smiled. Watch me. I filed for divorce that afternoon. By evening, the story had somehow leaked to the press. Wilson heir's secret double life exposed. I suspected Diana's hand in the timing, neutralizing any attempt by the Wilsons to control the narrative. Ethan made one desperate attempt to see me, camping outside Melissa's apartment until I agreed to speak with him through the chain-locked door. I never meant to hurt you, he said, eyes red-rimmed and desperate. I did love you in my way. Your way isn't love, I told him simply. It's ownership, and I'm not yours to own anymore. 2 weeks later, with the divorce proceedings underway and the media circus in full swing, I made my final decision. I'd been offered a position at a design firm in Seattle, across the country from the Wilsons' East Coast empire. The salary was good, the city was beautiful, and most importantly, no one there would know my story until I chose to share it. The night before our flight, I sat in the empty apartment, Lily sleeping peacefully in her portable crib. I slid through my phone to a recent text from Mira. I am returning to Singapore tomorrow. I wish you and Lily peace and healing. I am sorry for my part in your pain. I sent back only, we were both victims. I hope you find happiness. Then I deleted all contacts associated with the Wilsons, shut down my social media accounts, and changed my phone number. The only person who would have my new contact information would be Diana, to relay necessary legal updates. At dawn, Melissa drove us to the airport, helping with the minimal luggage I'd kept after selling or donating everything associated with my life with Ethan. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, at the security checkpoint. "You know you can stay with me as long as you need." I hugged her tightly. I've never been more sure of anything. This isn't running away, it's running towards something better. As our plane lifted off, Lily stirred in my arms, her eyes opening to stare up at me with complete trust. In that moment, I felt no regret, no sadness, only fierce determination. Patricia had been right about one thing. The baby had changed everything, just not in the way she'd planned. Lily hadn't just exposed the truth about the Wilsons. She had set me free. And as Seattle's skyline appeared through the clouds, I made a silent promise to my daughter. No one would ever make us feel like outsiders again. No one would ever again dictate the terms of our life. My baby, my life, my rules. And we were just getting started.